Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Coach's Corner. We've got a large group of coaches here tonight, including several guests, to talk about another elephant in the room, and that is about how we can maybe build some bridges to other medieval groups or SCA adjacent type things instead of burning those bridges. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to, oh, no, I forgot. Questions. If you have questions, drop them in the Facebook comments. I will pass them on to these guys and they will do their best to answer all of them. We love hearing from you. Interaction is what makes these really fun. So don't hesitate to participate, to drop your questions in the chat. Now with that, I'm going to hand it off to Viscount Tristan to get us started.
Thank you, Saib, for producing the show tonight. It's always great to have you running things behind the scenes. Definitely appreciate that. Yeah, the elephant in the room that we want to talk about tonight is, and Saib put it very diplomatically, which is how can we build bridges? The elephant in the room is how, by and large, the SCA is sucked with establishing good relationships with other groups. Just to set the stage for this, many decades ago, the SCA was pretty much the only game in town when it came to basically medieval reenactment, medieval recreation. At very least, we were the biggest one of the bunch, and we kind of enjoyed the monopoly. And in doing so, as other groups came about, we tended to kind of ignore them and blow them off and not welcome people from those other groups into ours. And I would include with that not just other fighting groups or specific reenactment groups, but also Renaissance festivals and places that attracted people into the medieval experience. And I know that was like that in my barony, where we had the biggest Renfest in the country. And we also had the biggest barony in the known world. At least that's what I was told about 20 years ago. I don't know if that's still the case, but the relationship that our SCA group had to the local Renaissance festival was horrible. Like, it was outright contempt from both sides to one another, and that could have been so much better. And I think this is something that we tended to get to as other groups popped up, and we viewed ourselves as being competition with them, or them in competition with us, where we assessed that the SCA is better than whatever it was they did, and they probably had a similar view of us. But that's the elephant in the room, is that the attitude about competition and rivalry versus cooperation, and the idea that we have a landscape of all these different groups that have similar types of activities that might have participants that would like to do and be active in both. So fortunately, we have a great panel tonight of people that have come from other groups into the SCA, that have successfully created bridges between SCA groups and other combat groups, other medieval groups. And so I want to welcome everybody to the show, and I want to perhaps have Brannis introduce everybody. He's got a better grasp of the background on that. So Brannis, if you'd care to take that.
Yeah, that'd be great. So first, I want to thank Jay, or as a lot of SCA people know him, as Duke Lucan. It's always a pleasure being just kind of around. I was actually going to, it was not a night I was going to stay, but he decided to come out, and he's a very busy man. So I wanted to come out and make sure to be able to hang out with him. So really, Jay came into the SCA and now is obviously doing other sword sports, but is still, working really hard on bridging gaps between all the people. And we're going to get to hear more about that later. And it's an awesome thing. We have Sir Ingolf. He's actually from a local group, my local group. He's a part of, and I'll let these guys say their group names, because I'll probably hack them apart. But I always call it Bell, and he had a big group there, right in the mid-realm, and actually got a bunch of them authorized shortly after he came in. And he is another one of these guys that has really enhanced the SCA by coming over. But I know he struggled too when he first got in. We have Duke Sven, and he has a host of stories that just keep going on. But He also has a line of lineage behind him that is truly amazing. He's an incredible teacher. All of these guys are incredible teachers. Havork, who came in the 80s out of DAG, right, Havork? And so it's nice. This isn't something new. This has been around for a long time, and we're going to talk about some of the other groups out there that also, do sword things and medieval things that are martial arts that we all enjoy. But on that note, Tristan, why don't you throw out the first question you have for all these guys?
Yeah, and this is a question focused on for those of you who come in from other groups. And Lucan, I'm not sure if I know I thought you were originally SCA, and you did you start from a previous group, or did you started SCA? Do I have that right? Oh, I'm sorry, you're muted.
There we go. No, I came straight into the SCA. There wasn't anything else. I came from a sports background. I was a swimmer and a competitive swimmer, and so I applied my swimming to this, but that has nothing to do with this.
Sure. Well, I guess my question then is for those people that did come from other groups into the SCA, what was it like for you entering into the SCA, and how were you received? What was your experience? Was it overall positive? Kind of what were the ups and the downs? Maybe we could start with Sir Ingolf.
Sure. Hey, guys. So I actually came out of Dagger here before the split early on, and then went and switched over to Bell. Started doing that. About a decade before I actually got into the SCA was my first attempt to get involved. I ran into a friend of mine at Denny's third shift, and started talking. Next thing I know, he's like, "Hey, you should come out to this event." Was not a good look. I got once somebody was like, "Oh, what do you do? Why are you here?" I was like, "Oh, I like swords. I like fighting." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, try this." And they're like, "Oh, you're a foam fighter. You'll never hit hard enough to play this game."
Lovely.
Okay. Sounds great. So
When can I come back? Yeah.
well, and then I got lucky, and my wife and I moved up to the Michigan area. One of the first people I ever got to talk to about SCA at all for real was Branas, and here we are. Couldn't say anything more positive than that. It's just been what it's been, and it's been fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, you find the right contact, and things really grow. Sven, how about you? Same question.
Remember, keep it under an hour.
I came from Amp-Guard where I was a knight and a warlord over there. And most foam games know about the SCA. It was the biggest for the longest time. I started foam fighting in the early 90s, I guess. And there are lots of SCA groups throughout the various areas and Ren fairs and different things. And we'd had a lot of bad experiences with SCAs, mainly talking down about at its heart, SCA is a LARP, and we did a lot of LARPing and gaming and stuff. A lot of people didn't like that association, and I had a lot of bad interactions with Laurels, of all things. They didn't like our costumes, and we wore jerseys and were real sporty. And a lot of the fighters talked to us about that's what their kids did, and we were like, that's SCA is where your slower guys go because you can't hang with the speed of foam fighting, right? And we're like, it's just what you guys go do. And as I got older, I didn't enjoy foam as much, and so I wanted to try other stuff. And when I came to the SCA, I'd seen it throughout the years at various parks, and I did not have a great reception because I could already fight pretty well. And I don't know what that does when you go out into these parks. People don't like, I guess, not getting that buy-in to help you learn to fight. You came in, and I got a pretty negative reception here, especially. And I don't think I would still be playing if I hadn't met my knight. My second time out, I met Duke Drake, who's a Duke of the Night here, and he took me under my wing and my wife and helped me understand the social differences between Amp-Guard and the various other games. And here, I probably would not be playing if I had not met him. It's not a wonderful experience, and it sucked the first year or so. There's just a disconnect between how the games do it and how people view those games. A lot of people said that, oh, we liked foam. I was like, they were extremely negative early on, and winning crown a few years in did not help. but now I love it. And
It's great
I
that
love
you
my
found
guys
the right
play.
connection, somebody with the positive attitude to bridge that gap for you.
For sure.
Cool. All right, Havort, about hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Have worked. It all works. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you the story real quick. Have work is because in Anglesey, before that Gwynedd Dagger here, the group that I fought in, it was half orc, and I had to get an SCA name, and I tried one, and no one would call me that, so it just became something very close to half orc. My group in DAG still calls me half orc, but we had two problems very similar to Sven, and that is we came in as a group. We had done DAG for years. We had a group of people who were like, hey, we're kind of the big fish in the little pond. We were some of the best people in DAG. And we're like, let's go do, first we did Markland and we kicked all their butts. And we're like, oh, now let's go do the SCA. We go out there, we authorize and stuff, and literally kicking people's asses during authorizations, which they didn't like. Then you get into a field battle and we're actually fighting in a line. We know what we're doing. We're killing people. And we just got ignored. They didn't want to talk to us. They didn't, we're like, well, where did you all come from? We're like, oh, we came from Dagger here. We love this stuff. And they're just like, oh, they just like wander off. And so it was pretty brutal. I mean, like we're still the group that came out of Dagger here is Anglesey now in Atlantia, a mercenary group that literally has spent the last 25 years getting a little more acceptance year after year after year. Now that group has Pelicans, Laurels, Knights in that group. But 10 years ago, if you wanted to be a knight in the SCA, you had to what's called go up the hill, which meant you had to give up all your old stuff and go up the hill, become a squire and do all that stuff. Didn't matter. And so, I mean, things have changed now, but it's a little better now. But still, for people coming in for the first time, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, I think it takes a while for some of those deeply held attitudes to start to shift. One of the things I think that's instrumental in that is to realize what value people that come into the group, into the SCA bring. And it doesn't matter whether they're coming in off the street and they're just interested in some medieval type activities, or they're coming in from another group that they already got introduced to activities like what the SCA does. The more people that you have in your group, the more vibrance and energy you have. That is value. That's value to your fighting practice, value to events, and being snooty about who's showing up that to me is the elephant in the room. That's the attitude that is going to stand in the way of people feeling welcome. And no society, no group can thrive when people do not feel welcome coming into their realm. So one of the things I was excited to have Jay on, because he's actually built a number of bridges very successfully. We don't want to have this whole episode be about the negative, about the poor attitudes, but about the success stories of not only having a number of these people that have come in from other groups and flourished, but also what it's like to successfully build bridges between many different groups. So Jay, maybe you could speak a little to that and your experience with crossing over to many groups within even the Knights Hall.
You're on mute.
I'm unmuted now. So can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Great. So it kind of goes back to the 80s. When we started, Nero started, I started doing SCA in 81. Nero started sometime around the same time, which was the New England role playing. It was like one of the big early LARPs. And there was already disdain and split between the two worlds right in the beginning in the early 80s. So one looked at the other as a bunch of thugs, and the other looked at the other as a bunch of LARPers. Right. And even not acknowledging that SCA itself is a LARP. Yeah. So those things go back right to like the beginning of my experience in the SCA, which is 41 years ago. I didn't kind of play that way. I I watched local groups chase away groups of college kids would come in from either LARP backgrounds or from the local medieval club or whatever. And if it would adjust the politics and the barony on elections, they'd chase them away. That kind of stuff went on in the 80s all the time. I watched it, and as a crown, we had to chase that mentality away. And that was part of why the whole term limits and all that stuff that I put in place years ago for that, because it was systemic. And over that time, like I brought in a LARP group in the McKinnon guys were basically a LARP group. And I brought those guys in the 90s, and Loch Levin came in, and they had all come from the LARP areas as well. And so they just kind of joined in with our group for a while. And then they went off and did their own thing. Duke Edward Gray, if you guys know him, Ed Gray was the best fighter out of that particular group of Loch Levins. But those guys all transitioned over to SCA here. And that's because in New England, we changed that mentality. I don't know, I can't speak for Jersey other than I know that it was still going on some years ago. And I imagine, did Raiku join? I don't know if he was coming in on this or not, but he'd be able to speak to that. But so when I started ACL, we were very focused on only the steel. But when I started ACS, I didn't want it to be that way. It had become negative. Everyone was being negative about everything. I'm talking like SCA and LARP, and so the mentality in the steel world was super negative and xenophobic. So when I started ACS, I wanted to do something different. I wanted it to make sure that it embraced all of these things. For one, there wouldn't be steel in the United States without SCA having existed, right? It just wouldn't have happened because it wouldn't have had the motivation. It certainly wouldn't be where it is today. So SCA helped build it. So I thought that it would be important to get our ACS folks to understand that SCA is a part of their heritage, and that all the sword sports and all the grappling sports and all the striking sports are stuff that we should all be embracing. And so we built our community that way. And we, instead of going, hey, you're from here, oh, that's lesser, we go, oh, that you're coming from a foam background. That means you're going to have good situational awareness. You're going to have good hand speed. Let's work on the things that you need to work on. And then we get someone who comes from steel, right? And we work on those, and we say, hey, these are the guys who fight foam. We're going to teach you how to fight. In fact, we're going to put you in foam and teach you how to fight with steel. So we use foam for just about everything now.
Yeah.
I don't use rattan for training anymore because it put too many bruises on people. Mm-hmm. And in order to get your hours of training in, you need to not be injured. And some people like to wear lesser armor than others. And yeah, that comes with its own price, but that also means that they're still not practicing. So we want them to practice. We want them to fight. And so we softened up a lot of those things, and we just basically embraced everything. So we try to put no hate on anything, right? And that is all my instructors, that is the culture of the Knights Hall. And that's why we have a gaming room. I have folks coming in who are athletes who have no nerd experience, right? They've seen Star Wars and they've seen Marvel movies, and that's it, right? They're not historians, but they want to come do this knight stuff because they always wanted to as childhood, from childhood, right? So we bring them in, and then we help educate them into what everyone else is doing. So we try to integrate everybody and provide all those tools. And then the SCA, with its vast resources, and it has vast resources compared to little old me, right? It has vast resources. And if they were used in an embracing and educational way when new people came in, I think the growth rate in the SCA wouldn't be driving them towards me, honestly. I think the experience in the SCA is great as long as people aren't being negative. And I think that goes beyond the steel, and beyond the rattan. right? I think it goes into those laurels, and it's a cultural thing that needs to be addressed systemically.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like you're coming from a positive mindset, Jay, and I think that's the biggest point. I mean, I think you nailed it on the head, and you're doing it, and that's why you're growing, and that's why you have something good going, is because you bring everybody in with a positive mindset, and you stay on that positive mindset. The people with negative mindsets, either they change them to positive mindsets or they leave, and you don't need them, right? And
absolutely. If they're not willing to change in that positive mindset, away they go.
Exactly.
And I used to, like, it used to devour me to push them away. Yeah. But now I can't. It's too important. There are too many people who need the work who want to. So I'm going to give it to them.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. You know, on that note, I mean, you know, Sven, you just throwing this back at you for a second. I got a story later, but you know, you came in, and then you came in a little bit by yourself. I'm sure you might have had somebody else or a friend or two, but you know, you kind of dove in a little bit. But then you brought people in, and it made it easier for them. Give us some examples of that. And again, I think you got hit with, you could easily walked out with a super negative mindset, but you didn't. You're like, you know what? I'm going to be the guy. I love what I can do here. I'm going to be that guy with the positive mindset and bring people in on that path.
So I was a pretty well-known amp sword fighter and really, really good at that. And I came over because it was just a different way of fighting. I like traditional strip fencing and all that stuff. Anything that involves hitting, I'm a super big fan of. And even though I got a lot of negative flack, once I met Drake, you guys don't do Drake, super good fighter, killed me a ton, and I enjoyed that a lot. Like the getting murdered in a new style brought a lot of love, and it made me want to get better. And I had a huge fighting company in Amsteorra, probably, and its biggest is probably 75, 80 people. It was probably 40 or 50 at the time. And a lot of the guys who came over who were Knights and Royals now are some of the top 10, top 20 guys in Amsteorra, and they're all longtime friends of mine. And they would visit down to me, or I'd go and see them and just slowly drag them over because they also enjoyed me getting beat on, and I get to watch them get beat on. And it's a good learning experience. I mean, a lot of these guys have been on top in another game for 10, 15 years. And it was just the enjoyment of fighting, especially losing, was a great attraction to me. And I have a lot of like-minded friends who enjoyed that. And most of us are here now. Especially
you're the Ben from tournament years ago, right?
From what?
Squires tournament.
You talking about Squire? Yeah, I won the Golf Wars, Pensic one, Golf Wars one, and I got knighted before the next one.
That's right. I'm just making sure that you are who I think you are.
Yeah, I was known in Amsteorra for being a two-weapon fighter. There's not a ton in Amsteorra either. But it's definitely more prevalent than it is here. And like Jay was saying, we do all our training and teaching starting off outside of just basic pelling is sparring with foam weapons. We really want you to not just get hit at will before you want to do anything SCA related. And then we switch to a heavier sword, do hats and bats, which are padded foam swords, and work on that a lot before you would ever do rattan training. Like I try to tell people all the time that the expectation that you can just armor up and go out there and fight and do any good at it is unrealistic at best. And I think a lot of people are just okay with just beating on people. And I was like, that's not how you retain people. And that's not how you teach people. It's ridiculous. I don't see how anybody would get good in SCA with two weapons like that.
I know right where you're coming from. And I'm a big believer in that too, is that, you know, I think we drive out a lot of people that don't have a lot of skills at the beginning, you know, because we don't train. We just throw them in a pit and let the dogs eat them, right? And, you know, sometimes it takes some training and reinforcement, get them used to it. And then some of these people in the end become some of the best fighters we've ever seen, because that training is a constant build cycle compared to some people who are purely natural. Some of those people that are purely natural, they go and they go and they go, and then they hit a plateau and they And then the next thing you know, they're like, well, I've never had to learn how to learn, so I'm done. I'm moving on, right? Where those people that come in with a very low bar on maybe, background in martial arts and things like that, they have to learn, and it's just part of the culture of becoming a better fighter. So, Havlork, you came in. How many people in that group did you have that came in? Were you guys self-supporting, or did you have an SCA person that kind of grabbed you and said, hey, we'll make this okay, and the SCA is cool?
No, we were actually self-supporting. As a matter of fact, we had almost the opposite experience. We had people who were in tights and pointy-toed shoes who were trying to tell us how to fight. And we'd never seen them actually with a sword in their hand, and it was brutal. It's like, I'm done with you people. And so we kind of stayed on our own. We kind of dealt with our own things. In fact, I probably wouldn't have joined the SCA. This is back, late 80s, early 90s. I probably would have just stayed with that group and not really joined the SCA proper. But I basically went out to Guam for 2 years to teach English. And while I was on the island, my first year, I met Duke Sean.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the only game in town. There wasn't anything else. And so, my first SCA tournament was the tournament to be the Palatine Baron of the Far West, which I won. So my introduction to the SCA was, congratulations, you're now a Palatine Baron, and you're running this whole show. And that was kind of like one of my big introductions. But I think, like Sven said, one person can make a huge difference. If it wasn't for Sean, also John Timmons, who was out there, and his wife, they were just amazing people, so welcoming. And that kind of started kind of my SCA kind of house, I had friends in the SCA, people who were supportive, people who would do anything for me. And so Guam really kind of got me to the fact, it was out West, it was a little different. I went out to a couple Crown tournaments out there, freaked out all the Dukes out there, was knighted very quickly, very similar to Sven, got knighted very quickly. But it was it was such a positive experience that then when I came back to Atlanta, of course, I come back to Atlanta as a Western knight, and I go back to Anglesey, and I'm like, oh, now I'm a knight in this, kind of group that does foam and Markland and the SCA. And I pretty much ignored kind of the movers and shakers in Atlantia for the first year and a half I was back. And then kind of slowly started to meet some cool people, not only from Atlantia, but people like Lucan and other people from the East and the Mid, who seemed really cool. But again, I think the biggest thing is, honestly, it's one person, and I think one person can make it and one person can break it. We talked about and not just fighters, right? This could be a Laurel experience. It could be a Pelican experience. It could just be an average Joe experience. But one person, holding out that hand and being like, hey, how are you doing? You're new here. This is fantastic. Really kind of can make a difference.
Hey, Ingolf, since you tend to be that guy holding out your hand every time somebody drives by and you're trying to stop their car so you can talk to them.
I'm a people person.
Yes, you are. So, I guess, obviously you fell into our group and we're a bunch of assholes. And anyways, but,
you're our kind of,
how do you feel like, the impact, that positive impact you bring to the SCA? You do bring a really big personality. You come from lots of different martial arts. You still participate in a lot of them. And when you see that first new person, how do you usually walk up, and what do you kind of talk to them about?
It just kind of depends. If they already look like they're a fighter, they already look like that's something they're interested in doing, the first thing I do is like, hey man, you want to fight? And just get real excited about it. Like just pour it on. And that's just my angle for it most of the time. But ask them if they've got a background, what it is, and then for me, one of the things that seems to work pretty well is to find something in their background that you can understand at least some of, find a positive in that, and reference that positive over and over and over and over again. And that could be football, it could be dance, it could be marching band, it doesn't matter what it is. Find that small thing, hold on to it, and be like, okay, so in marching band, you stand with your back straight, and your feet, you pace, and you're moving in step. So move in step with me. That's really good. And then you give them a lot of positives in that regard, and that seems to really help them be more receptive, especially if they have had a negative experience somewhere else. You want them to feel like instantly part of the group, instantly part of this weird little awkward family thing that we have going. And that seems to help.
Nope, totally. Hey, Tristan, how about we move on to the next kind of thing we wanted to talk about, and kind of the things we got in common, that we're a fighting show, right? We
Right.
training, coaching.
Well, and that's the one thing with any, and this is a big thing with negotiation, is you will have a successful negotiation with somebody if you find your common ground, the things that
Yes.
the values you both hold as being important. You never view it as, I want to get what I want, and I don't care if you get what you want. And that you call this to customer service. And this is where, as the SCA, every single one of us is an ambassador. When somebody walks in the room and we're the first face they see, the first voice they hear, we are the ambassador to say, and they'll get that feeling, like you said, one person can make or break it. That one person saying, hey, I'm glad you walked in this room. What can I help you with? What are you interested in doing? And I'm going to do everything I can to get you closer to it. And that could be whether you introduce them to a leather worker because they're all geeked out about leatherworking, or say, hey, you want to make some armor because you want to fight, I can help you with that. And rather than saying, all right, I'm up one and down, and say, oh, what are you here to do? Why are you kind of bothering us? Or things like that. And I've heard throughout the years that other reenactment groups, such as Civil War reenactors, all have the same problem. So it's not like the SCA's got is unique in this regard. And to the point where their elitism actually kills the group, where new people just feel like they will never be part of that close-knit group of old timers. And I think that's the attitude also to break, is you want the new people, the new blood. You want people to be excited about coming in. And there's no greater energy than new people coming in who are just brimming over with enthusiasm to try this new thing out. Doesn't matter whether they're smooth or they're good or they're athletic or they're talented. It matters that they just cannot wait to try everything that we have to offer. And I've found, as an old timer in the SCA, I love help fulfill that enjoyment, that eagerness, getting them closer to it. And it doesn't matter if they've got tennis shoes on or whatever. All that stuff is that's cosmetic. What's in their heart, that passion, that to me is what the SCA or any group survives on, it thrives on. You need that relationship, as well as you need the mentorship of people who are experienced that will let those people grow in a healthy way. So I would say, in fact, Bronis, I wanted to kind of turn this back to you, because I think both you and Lucan have done a very good job of taking from the era that I remember, which is you show up, you borrow somebody's armor, and you get the crap beaten out of you. You're limping for 3 days. You can't sleep on your left side because you're got a monster bruise, and that's just what it is. To let's layer training to make it fun and exciting and informative, where people can learn and feel as though they're not just walking away banged up. They're feeling like, hey, I can do something now that I couldn't do when I showed up here tonight. Like, even if it's one little thing. And I think that training, and we've talked a lot about this on other episodes, about how we expand the actual experience of somebody showing up to practice, not just throw them in the death pool.
Yeah, no, and Tristan, I agree 100%. I think that Jay's doing it like every day, every class he does. And, he's living a dream, or at least my dream. I hope it's his dream too. I know it is his dream. So, but, there's nothing, you kind of hit a point. I call it, our SCA vampirism, or what old SCA vampirism. It's like, you get a new person and you're like, you're old and you go to these old, you're tired of going to the parties. You're tired of you've seen a million great fights, all this other shit. And then somebody new comes in and you're like, I'm going to bring them to this cool party. And they're like, oh, and you're like, you get all of that great new, you can look right through their eyes and see what you saw again. And it's an incredible thing. I mean, there is nothing better to help people live those great experiences and bring them along with you and hand things over to them. And it's hard. I mean, I'm in a group that, we have 140, 180 people, and, the fighting unit's about, 100 people. And, I tell you, out of that 100 people, if you ask me how many people came because the SCA, and I'm not going to say the SCA turned them away, but they didn't get the best reception in the beginning of the SCA, I would say about 60. I mean, that's 60%. Because that happened, they came over, they're like, other people from DAG years ago were like, hey, just come hang out. We got a great group, but they'll love to have you, right? And then next thing you know, we swell up to 100 people, right? And they're having a great time. Next thing you know, just like Have Orcs group, a couple of them are Pelicans, and and it just keeps going. And it's not hard. It's just putting a hand out and saying, hey, I'll show you somewhere, or just if I know that person's a little, they're nice once you get to know them, but for now, just come hang out with me, that kind of thing. And, my first experiences with a LARC group was really old Daggerhair, Petwivern, and it was people like Valharic, when he was 14, and we had Colin and Aberon and all of these people, and then all of their friends that were part of there, and we just hung out. We went to their LARP events and played different characters at their LARP events so they could fight, and then they were fighting with us and went to Penzic, and we're all just there trying to enjoy life, right? We all really
I casted for a LARP event, so I could go up the guys.
Yep, I mean it's incredibly
surprise
fun.
them. You show up on a Saturday night, you go to casting, they put you in orc gear, you go out there, the guys are all doing their thing, and next thing you know, they're getting beat up. They're like, "Who the hell's killing us?"
Exactly. That's exactly the way it was.
Right.
But it's so and it doesn't mean that it's just crossovers. I mean, it's everybody. I mean, we have a whole new group of people coming in to the SCA that want to try fighting, that have no background at all, or were given the opportunity to have a background. In fact, high school sports that are aggressive weren't really part of their background. A lot of now we're seeing
our demographic as well. We're getting a lot of folks who are coming in who have no physical experience at all in anything.
Yeah, well, and let's call it, Jay. I mean, we're skirting around the subject, but we're talking women fighters. I mean, lots of high schools and other things don't have sports that are super aggressive. We see women going into football now and wrestling and things like that, but they didn't have it in the past. And so when they come in, what's happening is they don't have a good layered background. They get all kinds of negative input different ways, and then they get beat up. And why would they stay more than 2 or 3 times?
Right.
So, I mean, that's a big thing. But if you layer on training and make them feel good about the things they're doing, next thing you know, they're standing in with anybody else and block the shot so they're not getting abused.
We've divided up our training classes into a men's and non-men's. So identify where you do and go where you want. And so liberal East Coast, that's the way we do it. And so that has worked so well because there are a lot of women who have never done anything really physical who are really interested in this. And they have been trying other sports in the past, and they've been either spurned or mansplained or whatever that is. And so I'm we are purposely in my business creating a safe environment where we have woman instructors or non-men instructors running those classes. And luckily, because we've done this enough, that we are now successfully running those programs. But it was really difficult to get out of the just let everyone mingle and hit each other mentality, even in your own training class, because there are just some people you can't let fight each other. When I have like 7 foot tall Malik, I can't put 7 foot tall Malik on 4'11", 97 pound Tanya, right? I can't have that, right? So not in when we're doing physical stuff like throws and such. Now, when we do one shot, which is what we call SCA stuff here, one shot or first blood, just about everyone can do that once they've been taught with foam. But once we get the more physical stuff, we have to divide out rather quickly, which fortunately SCA doesn't have to as much. And that's a great thing, because it'll be a lot more inclusive that way, where people can get a little more visceral without getting physically manhandled. So I still steer people towards SCA to do those things.
Awesome. Hey, Mark, I guess a question for you, because I mean, you've been in a number of hard-hitting kingdoms. How do you handle people that come in with very little background in maybe martial arts?
I mean, to be honest, I think those are easier, because they come in with less expectations. They don't know what it is. They don't know what they need to do or they don't need to do. They don't have any bad habits. They don't have any. And Sven, I'd love to get your answer to this, but I know when I came in, I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder. Like Sven, I was the biggest fish in a little pond. And so when I joined the SCA, I was already fighting at a night level. There wasn't a question about it. And so that can be pretty brutal, and, when you're saying, hey, all it takes is one person, well, I'm sure I wouldn't have wanted to be that person to have to deal with me. I probably had an ego that, I could barely put my helmet on. Because again, I was already a big fish in a little pond, and I'd go up and be like, oh, okay, well, unless you're wearing a white belt, I don't want to fight you because that's just too easy. And so, I went out looking for white belts. And I'm sure they're looking at it going, who's that asshole? Pardon my French. And so, I think sometimes it's easier to take someone who's brand new, and you get to walk them into it and be like, okay, well, this is what we do and this is how we do it, and kind of teach them the right ways, and all of the not rules and regulations, but all just kind of the ways the SCA is interesting, right? With our royals and all that cool stuff. But you get someone that comes in, myself, Tristan, Athos from Ansteorra was probably the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And even, you look at him and of course he's so good. You're like, I hate that guy. I want to fight him, but I hate that guy. He's that good just coming in his first year. And I'm sure Sven was exactly the same, if not better. And so it's probably tougher when you're getting these crossovers, because even if they don't have a chip, you've got one. Because you're looking at them going, God, you got no right to be that good. And I came from this. And so, it was much easier for me to kind of go to Athos and just be like, dude, you're rocking out the house, man. This is amazing. And some of the other Sven guys that were in Ansteorra at the time. But that's really hard. I mean, it's really hard for, a tried and true Scadian who always came up through the SCA to basically look at those guys and not kind of feel a little bit chip on their shoulder when some unbelt who looks like they've been fighting for a week and they're in tennis shoes, smacks them. That can be really humbling to an SCA knight or an SCA count or a duke. Wham! What the hell is this kid doing? I think it's easier when they're new.
I think they do that to all the young folks anyway. Because am I still muted? Yeah.
No, you're good.
Okay. So I think because when I was a 22-year-old master, or they treated me that same way too. So I had a chip on my shoulder because we were, treated as children. And that's what I think the folks from Anglesey and all the splinter groups are many times treated like children, that they don't know all the things that we all know, blah, blah, blah. Right. And they're not equal to us because we're not a Laurel Kingdom. I had to deal with that shit with Ocker for decades. And Ocker, a bunch of great people, have been doing rattan sword stuff. And if it wasn't for bad SCA stuff, it wouldn't have ever existed. So they're a bunch of great people. They were treated poorly in their area by a lot of people. And just because they were different. And I think it's more xenophobia than what people come like that it's LARPing or whatever. I think it's just because they're coming from different groups with a different, more so a different culture. It's a cultural clash, and that's where people are feeling most upset. And we got to get by that cultural clash and say we're all the same culture, just different aspects of it.
Yeah, I would agree.
No.
I'm going to throw that right at Sven, since he kind of got the cultural class, and I think Havor called him out a couple of times. What do you have to say, man?
My experience matches Havor's there. The guys that I bring over who are already warlords, name card, really good. You're coming across your top 10, top 20. They have had the poorest time trying to play SCA. Just does not go well. The guys I bring over who know nothing, who are beginner students and they come over, they get a lot better experience. I tell people it's far easier to bring someone who knows nothing and get them to enjoy it than it is somebody who's already really good. I don't know what it is about it, but it just doesn't go well if you're already good at fighting. I don't know why. It just doesn't go well.
Yeah. Tristan, I think you got something?
Yeah, and this kind of jumps into Havor's point, and I think it's something that's important for everybody to realize, and that is when somebody comes into a group like the SCA from another group, they're not just like a normal person who's walking in curious. They could be very emotionally charged, thinking, I'm going into the lion's den, I'm going into this foreign place, I'll probably be viewed as an outsider, or which could be a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you say, hey, what are you interested in, or what brought you here, what got you interested, and you say, I'm from this other group, and immediately they feel like they've been knocked down 3 notches on the ladder, like they're starting below neutral. That can be one of the worst things that you can do, which is to make it more challenging for somebody who's already feeling kind of hesitant, maybe vulnerable, maybe apprehensive. They don't know what kind of reception they're going to get. You could imagine, a gang member wandering into another gang member's territory. They might think they're going to get their ass beat. And the stories you guys are telling are kind of fall into that same category. It's like, oh, well, somebody here from another fighting group, we need to light him up and make sure that he knows who's boss. Those are the types of things that we're talking about, destroying the bridge as opposed to building it. And I really liked Ingolf's point about point out what they have already a good strength in and build from that, rather than say, oh, guess what? Now you're, a jackass from this other group that we don't like. So now you got to prove your worth to us. Like, that is totally a destructive attitude. And so I think that I would suggest to anybody that is that ambassador in that one moment where somebody new walks up, be excited that they've already shown interest to be active in another group, and that they've already given you something to help find where they want to integrate into your group, whether it's experiences they've already had and they maybe have something else they want to try that's close, that's what the SCA has to offer. Like, that's what you as that ambassador can offer them, and do that. Be that person that gets them in connection with what more a good experience that they want to have. And never make them work harder because they showed up, because they come from another group. Like, that's just a cardinal sin. I just wanted to throw that one in there.
No, I think that's a great one. And you kind of brought up Ingolf there, and I guess he does bring that to a point where it's like you grab something that somebody's good at, and I tried to do this all the time. If even early when Ingolf came in, I mean, he was fast as you can believe. And, we were even lucky to hit him. So, it's, but, there are times, right at the beginning, I'll grab people that do something well, even if it may not be always the perfect killing blow or nothing, but the technique is really, really good. And then I'll be like, hey, how about you show these guys and girls how to do this? And because as soon as you get people, saying, hey, I know I do that well, and now they're asking me to show others, it's kind of that proven point. And then they get more buy-in and they want to do other things well. Right. I mean, that's a huge piece. And, it's probably, I'm going to let Ingolf talk about this, but I'm sure, and we'll get to Jay in a sec too after that. I'm sure he gets this all the time. It's, you get somebody coming in with some MMA experience and you're like, hey, somebody knows how to take someone to the ground, somebody knows good throws, trips, all this other stuff. We're going to have him show some stuff because maybe he's competed and you're like, well, that's pretty damn good. I haven't competed. So he obviously probably has something to teach me, and I think that's a big piece is we have to be open to say people have things to teach me. Because
you leave that open for my classes all the time.
Yep.
So that's a huge part of facilitative learning. And that's something that we all as trainers need to do more of, is to let them do the work and bring in what they have to show, because giving them that agency gives them buy-in, and then they start to feel trust and comfort. So they're easier to train.
Yep.
So yeah.
And they're part of the community.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I agree with that completely.
So Ingolf, what do you think you brought in from, when you I'm going to come on, you came to this area, there was probably some top class guys here, right? But you still brought a lot, you brought in a ton of personality and, but not only that personality, that really good personality that's open to folks, you brought in some real, you pushed the edge of fighting that much higher, right? And, you're very good at a lot of things. You pushed all you have to think people saw you and they were like, Jesus, if he can do this, and then that's what I want. I'm right on your coattails. They wanted to get there, right? How do you feel? This is a really, the good part is you came in almost as a trainer right away. So
I got really lucky, and like a lot of people said, we're talking about their first experiences. For me, getting in and being able to you can ask my wife anytime, she laughs about it every time I say it, but the first time I came back from a practice, I threw my shit in a big old bag and I dropped it on the floor. I was like, honey, guess what? And she's like, what? I'm like, I got my ass beaten. It was great. And I got really lucky that everybody around here was just so supportive and then also willing to pick up on the small things, which at that point I didn't understand I was doing right, which was part of that understanding for me was, and for a lot of people who come over with a bunch of experience, again, I was very good coming in, and I got lucky that I came out of foam, and I had a shit ton of reps, just rep, safe reps. You can just keep working because it's foam. You can throw it all day. But coming over with that information was good and it was useful, but I got to fine tune it, and I had to dump the cup out, take all the information that I thought I knew, kind of dump it out and be like, okay, that's still good. I just got to start over again. I got to get a different drink out of the pop stand because this one's different. But being able to teach is, at least for me, it's really selfish. And I know some of the guys who teach understand what I'm talking about. When you get to teach somebody brand new and you get to explain what's going on at that real finite level, right out of the gate, the level that you think a brand new person can understand, you're really just getting to redo all of the basics again for yourself. And the fact that you get to teach them that very, very short codified version of the basics and understanding that just makes you a better teacher, and it makes them a better fighter. And it just stacks and stacks and stacks. Everybody gets better. The newer people we get, we teach them again, we learn them again, we run them again. The next group comes in, you have them teach the next class down. And it just, it just goes. It's great.
Yeah, and I think the good part is you actually took a lot of that. You got a good hard understanding of what you were doing and how to teach and what was happening and everything you were doing. Because a lot of times when you're younger, you're just pure natural, right? You're throwing fast and just you're living on adrenaline, right? And the good part is you came here, you got that place where you could start understanding what you're doing and tweaking and learning how to control tempo and all these other things. And best part was you brought it right back to your other guys.
Yeah, I go back to the foam fighting practice as regularly as I can. When I go back for, I still run a 90-man foam unit, and I've pulled people out of that into different groups. We got people in Chicago, Central Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, just all over the place that are all just picking it up, getting helmets, getting in armor, getting out there and fighting. But the big thing is, one of the big things I wanted to do when I came over to the SCA was learn as much as I could about why it's working, why it's productive, why it has so many members, how the retention works, and it makes sense now that I see it. It's community, and without it, we're boned.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Hey, Tristan, you have something.
Yeah, we have a Facebook question, and I think this is an excellent one that we put up to actually a number of everybody here. It said, could not have asked for a better timed topic. I'm organizing a demo at a local pirate Ren fair. The people who run it are a splinter group, Adrian or something, he says, very little knowledge of them. I'm making flyers and will have my book available. Planning on having combat and fiber demo. Have you any experience with demos and any sort of advice for drawing crowds? And resources or anything you'd recommend for somebody putting together a demo like this? Maybe Jay, you're doing that would be a good first one to talk about. Yeah, you're the marketing guy.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So yeah, so we put flyers, we Facebook advertise, we Twitter, we put TikTok videos. Use all the social media at hand to get it out there, and contact local schools and let them know that it's happening. I'm not sure what your local junior high school curriculum is, but usually around here it's 6th grade or 7th grade. They do a heavy bit on the Middle Ages. So try to tie into a school system and get people, and those kids bring in parents who might be interested.
Yeah, I mean, we used to do a ton of demos. I think in fact, one year, I think we did almost 70 of them, and a lot of Boy Scout, a lot of schools, believe it or not. The big key is make good contacts on the other side and be a good face to what the SCA is. And then when you go there, make sure everybody else knows they also need to be that good face for the SCA, and that it's not you against the other people running the event. It's both of you trying to bring in people that and engage people for each other. I mean, you're creating a bigger event for each other that will draw more, and hopefully both groups benefit out of it.
You're the responsible ambassador.
Yep. So, Sven, Havork, you guys have any experience on that?
We do a whole bunch of elementary school, just like what Jay was talking about. They do a medieval section, and we've actually gotten more teachers involved in the group. Just by going there, and we let the kids hit us with swords and all that fun stuff, and we put on a combat demo, and we put on usually a fiber arts demo and other things. But then we really hit with those teachers. The kids are great, the kids love it, that's what we're there for. But I think if you're talking about like a pirate demo, right, make sure it's as fun as you can for the kids, and then reach out to the parents. Make sure you have cards printed. Make sure you have your social media on your cards, so you can just hand that out to parents. And then, to be honest, don't feel like you have
QR codes.
Nowadays, QR codes. I said, and don't feel like you have to bring them into the SCA. Like, we sent a lot of these parents whose kids are interested to Dagger here, because they're, I mean, if they're upper elementary school, hey, you want to bring your kid out, whether it's Dagger here or any of the groups that deals with the little kids. Because to be honest, bringing a parent into the SCA and then have this kid start boffer, that's a lot of work. But sending a kid to Dagger here is, to a buffer group is never a bad thing. Because again, like Sven, myself, a lot of these guys, Ingolf and others, they're coming back. We may not be the best group, but we're the largest, and eventually, little fish, big pond, and you'll move around.
So there's a point, Sven. You got kids? Are you going to bring them to foam stuff?
My two oldest, I think he's 21. My daughter's 19 now. He foam fought for a while with me and did various things, but they all fall out of it. They paddled in practice with me. The youngest one, he's in fencing. He's 4. We're starting that. But I tell everybody, if they have people approach me and they have kids who want to fight, I tell them to go play guard or Dagger or Bellegarde. They have a much better community for it, and it's more people around their age group. Minimum age fighting group is 14, sometimes younger, depending on where it is, and it's much more inclusive for that kind of thing. And I still teach foam here. I still have a group. I'm specifically usually approached because people want to learn to fight with 2 weapons, and so when people approach me, it's for a specific style of fighting. Other than that, I send them out to the parks. There's tons. Dallas got a lot of fighters. Houston, Austin, all the big cities here in Texas have large amp guard kingdoms.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, man. I think the best part about that, and Havework, you showed a picture of your kid in gear and stuff, and I think the best part about that is like, oh yeah, my dad does SCA now, but he does SCA, but he sent me here because it's this is the place where I was going to have the most fun, and then we get that positive impact back in. It's not, the SCA is just not a bunch of assholes holding up our nose to these groups anymore, right?
Yeah, I took my son. My son did youth combat in the SCA, and then just last November, I took my 15-year-old to a Dagger Here event, to the Thanksgiving Dagger Here event. I went, I fought, he fought, and I made sure he fought away from me. And so he found people his own age that he connected with. Now they're well, they're not Facebook friends because Facebook's for old people. Sorry, I know we're Facebook. They were on Facebook, but they connected on some Discord server they made or whatever. And they talk about what next thing they're going to.
No, I think that goes a long way. It's I think if we did more of that, I think we would have a lot more crossover in between the groups, and make a lot more friends, enjoy our time, hang out. Because in the end, it's back to what Ingolf talked about, and that's community, right? And Jay has built an incredible community. That's, if you're going to run a business like his, you have to. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Foam is successful because it's younger generation. By the time you're 30, you're older than most of the people who are playing currently. So right. I tell people, I think I was early mid-30s by the time I left, and the great majority of the people you fight with are going to be in their late teens and early 20s. It's huge groups, and I still had fun in it. It's just a lot of my friends didn't play anymore. After 15 or 20 years, your group of people that slims way down. That you came up with, so you're just trying to find other stuff to do. So I was like, if you're looking for something that a lot of young people go do, go foam fight. There's tons. I guess it was a couple years ago, we went and did a zombie LARP. They had guns and some Nero swords. I think I have like 8 or 9 lightsabers. We'll go lightsaber fight. We got a couple group members from that. Fighting's fighting, and you just find people who enjoy the hobby and not necessarily steer them, but if they enjoy fighting, they'll fall in with it. And I tell people, I was like, whatever you want to do, we can lightsaber fight, we can rattan fight, foam fight, whatever. I enjoy it.
No, I agree 100%. And I guess that, fighting is fighting. It's like we talked, Ingolf and I laugh every time somebody's like, oh, you LARP. And I like, no, those guys fight, we LARP. They don't have a bunch of different names. They don't have all these, they have a few titles, but it's not nearly different personas and all this other stuff. But
yes,
what's that?
Yes, your grace.
Yeah, exactly. It always makes me laugh. But you know, that's and you brought something up, Sven, and that is, you kind of age out of foam a little bit because you do. I got bad news. I get it in the SCA a little bit too, although the age group tends to rise as well. But a lot of my friends are gone. I tell you, man, I just absolutely love the new people. We had a huge influx of new people when Ingolf came out, and they taught me so much about life the way it is now, and how to be more open and more inclusive, and understand what that even means. I mean, that's you don't, you know, until you get a chance to really be part and be around people like that. And
My is in their 20s mostly, and that's I've learned an incredible amount of what the world is today and what we've done with it and where they see it going, and they're our future, so we've got to guide them the best we can and let them guide us at the same time.
bingo. I would agree 100%. So Tristan, what else we got to talk about here?
Yeah, I wanted
time left
to bring this point up because this kind of dovetails into what was mentioned a minute ago, which is about kind of the taking on a business attitude towards it. And when that word got brought up, I think this is something that I held when I opened my own dojo, and that is when somebody comes to me and they said, "I'm interested in martial arts. I want to try this out. I don't know anything about it, but it sounds pretty good." Usually the first thing I'll ask them is what exactly their interest is. And I'll be honest with them and say, I might not be the person that's going to deliver what it is you want, but I will help find the instructor or the art that is really going to be what you want to do. And I can see a parallel here of when somebody comes to the SCA, for example, and says, I really want to, they're 15 years old. I really want to get into this. And you might say, all right, you know what? We may not do the best of delivering what it is you want, but I know the group that does, and we're going to put you there. And what Havor talked about of, you know, where do you place people based on what it is that they want? If you outright ask them, you know, what are you looking for? Be honest and say, what we're doing may not be your best fit, you know, and the SCA, oftentimes we try to say, well, we'll try to, they try to make the square peg fit in the round hole by saying, all we have is a round hole, so jam in there. Or if you don't like it, get out. And I think that this kind of transitions into a piece of homework that I think SCA people should do. Get to know the other groups, what their strengths are. So when somebody comes to you who doesn't quite fit in, you know, wouldn't be maybe old enough to get into rattan combat because that's all your group does at the current time, find a place that says these people are exactly well suited to what you want to do. And let me take you there. Let me introduce you to them. And of course, the homework is go introduce yourself to those groups. Don't just say, well, here's their website, go there. You're kind of giving them the brush off, but facilitate an introduction. Get to the point where a group can say, you know, I like those SCA people. They actually send us people that's the sort of folks that we work with and we're good with. Acknowledge what those other groups do well. Do your homework and find out. Introduce yourself. That's to me the kind of the hard homework of starting to build those bridges, and then you follow through. And I know other dojos here in the Twin Cities, when people have young kids come to me and say, hey, what do I do with my 5-year-old? Say, you know, who's got really great kids classes? This is the dojo, and here's who you talk to. Take them over there, and they're going to have a good experience. Because you garner respect by doing that, by saying, this isn't about me just peddling my wares to you. It's, I'm going to see that you get what you want, even if it's not through me. And so I think that that's a good first step to starting these bridges and taking an active role in building them.
No, I would agree 100%. And, you know, again, you know, both you and Jay are in that place where you're building something and it's a real business around martial arts. And, you know, being negative around things just breeds more negativity. And sooner or later, it brings it all down, right? And
there's a great power with positivity, but what I've noticed is that negativity breeds faster than positivity.
Yeah.
it's like a wildfire. And if you let it start to cook up a little bit, you look away for a second and you turn back and it's a forest fire.
Yeah,
I
because
would agree.
we're humans, we dwell on the negative.
Yeah. So I got, we're running in. We got about another, probably a little under 20 minutes. I'm going to run a quick run here with everybody. And what I'd like to know is the one thing that you'd like to see SCA people do, or even if it's one or two, when they get crossover people. What can we do better? What would you say? This is the one thing I'd really love to see. And that's a hard question. I know I'm gonna talk a little bit just so you guys have time to think about it, because I'm gonna ask each one of you. But I mean, for me, just because of where I am, and it took a long time to get here, the one thing I would love people to see, and this I'm gonna tag this to old SCA people who unfortunately get tied in so deep that they feel like they have ownership, is be open to continuing to learn from the new people that come in your group, because they will make your life and so much better in the long run. And we want this to continue going. And I would tell you one thing: nobody owns this group. Period. Sven, I'm throwing this at you.
Yeah, I have a cruder way to approach what you're saying there. I tell people all the time, I was like, it's fuck your SCA. I was like, I get it, what you did and what you come from. This is person SCA, and this is their experience, and this is what they're looking for. Quit trying to impose your SCA and experiences on them. Let them have fun. If that's what they want to do. Let them have fun with it. I mean, really, don't make it about you. Fuck your SCA. That's what I always tell people. Fuck your SCA. Let them have fun. Let them have their own SCA.
I like it.
Don't impose what you think. Let them do it. Fuck it. Can't hurt.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome, man. I like that.
Yeah.
Avark, I'm throwing it at you.
Yeah, I'd say send them to the most exciting person who does whatever it is they're interested in. Because, like, as you said, Branos, like, there is nothing like excitement, and as a old Scadian, right? Like, I may not be the most exciting guy out there, right? I mean, you've got some of these young punks who are like just all gung-ho and ready to go, and they're already teaching and everything else. They probably have the excitement, the patience, the stories that aren't, 50 years ago, it's going to be a little bit more relatable to someone like that than maybe to an old fart like me. But again, that excitement is key. If you can't be that exciting guy, find someone who is, and
man,
don't
you're like calling out Ingolf, man.
Right. Don't send them over to Ingolf, walk them over to Ingolf.
And it is kind of, actually, I love that one, because I do that all the time. And I'm going to tell you, I'm passionate and I can motivate people, and I can get them excited, but nobody wants to talk to some gray-haired old guy standing in the corner, right? They don't, there's
with tights on and pointed shoes. Right. Absolutely.
Right. So I'm like, that first thing I do is like, I'm going to bring you over here and then I'll be back.
So all my front facing instructors are all in their very early 30s.
Yep.
And fit as fuck. Right. Oh, excuse my language. But they're all fit. And I'm the old guy, and I wander in and out. I try to be the old master, as opposed to running everything. And I have the energy and all that still, but I'm still the old gray bearded guy. So I'm playing the elder role in this now. And my younger instructors are all doing it. Besides, Kat's got, LARP experience, foam experience, judo experience, steel experience, or tan experience. Let him run those classes, and because he does a great job anyway, and he's got 3 world championships, so I might as well.
There you are.
Right. and me, I can just kick back a little bit, and now it gives me a chance to oversee it all, but and make sure that we are doing the things that we want to do and providing that experience for our customers. And in the SCA's case, they have to do the same thing. And, everyone who walks in the door is a customer if they want to grow, right?
Yeah.
They have to treat them that way. And whether they believe it or not, they still have to do it. And so that means that the gatekeeping has to kind of go away, or that SCA is going to die. And groups like mine and others will thrive. And I'd really like the SCA continue to thrive. I think it offers a whole pile of things that I'll never offer because I have a focused group. Mine is focused on combat. It's not focused on medieval culture or any of that stuff, right? And so the SCA has a very strong place in the world for me, and what I believe my medievalists that I gather will go to there. My sportsmen I'll keep away, because if they don't want to do it, then I'm not going to make them go do that. But they'll at least respect it. And that's the goal, is try to make everyone respect one another and what everyone else brings to the table. And if we treat each other with respect, even though, put past histories aside, throw it all aside, because we can make new choices every single day. The past is the past. So if folks will start to respect one another, I think the SCA will grow, and these groups will all start to mingle with each other much more than they do today.
I would agree. Ingolf, what's the thing you would say? The one thing that you would tell how to break that barrier that we've seen?
One of the things I end up seeing a lot, especially for brand new people, is they get talked at more than they get talked to. And everybody does it.
Everybody's
And
waggling
everybody
their head
does it.
on all the over here. Nobody can see it, but all the coaches and everyone is over
Oh,
here
yeah.
like, yeah, that.
So-
pointing fingers.
So again, and I'm really glad that I get to do a lot of that job sometimes, is I get to go work with somebody. I get to snatch them up. I get to make sure their armor fits. I get to help them get into a kit, drag them out onto the field. But the best thing you can do for a brand new person on their first day is keep them busy. Don't give them any downtime. Unless they're exhausted or like throwing up, it's happened. I try to feed them people. Like, hey, that was a really great fight. How'd you feel? What'd you learn? What'd you like about it? What didn't you like? What didn't fit? Is your armor fit good? How are you feeling? Have you had some water? What do you think about this? This was a lot of fun. That looked like you did it really well. And be like, okay, now on this next one, focus on that thing you did great. And I'm going to put you with insert, and if it's our group, insert Sir so-and-so here, or Duke so-and-so here, because we have like 3 unbelts left. I know, right?
That's not
So
a problem. That's not a problem.
It's not a problem. It's just funny. So you just drag them over and put them in front of, and then introduce them, give them that information, who they're fighting, give the person they're about to start fighting the information of what they're about to work on, and talk at them less. Even on the other side, even in a helmet. Don't tell them about, Penzik 2. They don't know what the fuck that means yet. They don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Wait till you go to their first Penzik and their eyes are as big as mine, and they're looking at the whole world and they're sucking it all up and they're like, this is amazing. You're like, man, this one time at Penzik, and then pour them a drink, if they can. But keep it easy, keep it light off the gate.
Yeah, listen to their stories. Ask them what their story is, because I'm going to tell you, we're a story society, man. It's incredible. So, you know what? I'm going to throw this. We still got 2 people let's go ahead. Jay, go ahead. What one thing would you say? But, I know you already jumped in a little bit, but it was more on Havork's piece. If you were to say something, what would that be?
Respect. I would say that people need to treat new people with respect and not belittle them when they walk in the door, because they're doing a thing that people don't know what they don't know. So assume that that you're the only person that they're going to have as a contact, and treat them respectfully, and don't talk down to them.
That you know what, Tristan, this is hard because everybody gave something. Everybody's shaking their head or pointing the fingers. That's it. What's yours, buddy?
The one I would say is try to look at what this new person is seeing through their eyes. Like something drew them into that room, that to come out to a practice, to come to a meeting, or to come somewhere. They're interested in something. It's your job to find out what it was. get it from that. And I like the talking at somebody point instead of talking with them. And this is why I love asking when people come into my dojo, the first thing is, what is it about this that you really found attractive? Like, what is it you're looking for? Because I want to help you get that to you.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets onto the point of also realizing that we are the SCA in any of these groups. You imagine like you are all different groups at one big carnival, and that you are going to compete. When somebody wants to come back, who are they going to go to? They're going to go to the people that were the friendliest, the most helpful, the most energetic, the most positive. The ones that are the downers and the elitists, they're going to get left in the dust. And I think that's, you know, how everybody, when they have a child, they always view that child like they first met them. Like oftentimes parents have that problem where they never see their little boy or their little girl grow up. Even though they do grow up, they still view them the way that they did years ago. And I think a lot of people in the SCA or any of these groups view it the way that they did when they started. And they don't comprehend, or they don't really understand how the whole landscape has evolved. The SCA has changed. All these other groups have popped up. It's a different world. You have to appreciate that and realize that you are competing for these people's attention, and they will go to where they have the best experience. And so I would challenge any SCA person, step your game up a little, make it more friendly for new people, have a more positive attitude, and be helpful. That's my thought.
Yeah, you know, I guess that's really interesting too, because you know, you talk about the first time somebody comes over. I mean, I'm sure every one of us had it. You're walking to a place that you know nobody, and you may be coming out of something else, and it's all different. And that first experience, that first person you talk to, really lays down that place where it's like, well, I shouldn't have came, or I should have, and I'm glad I did. And I think that's the piece that everybody needs to think about. Which way do you want that person that you're talking to, their first experience, which way do you want them to think? Because I guarantee you, everybody wants them to think this is
first person. Yes, and I still remember it.
Yeah.
35 years. Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure you want to be that person that, you know, is like, makes that person think this is the best. But that takes work. That takes listening to them. It's about them and not about you. And I think that's really what every one of you said. It's about them, not about you. Make their experience the one they want. And
that's how Farrell taught us. So
what's that?
That's how Farrell taught us.
Yeah. You know,
it all goes back to, you know, Farrell and Elspeth for me. You know, they treated me very well as a 16-year-old coming into this thing. And here I am, you know, 41 years later, and made it my career. So if they had treated me poorly, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. And wouldn't have had the life and the friends and everything else you got.
I've met some amazing people, and I've lived a life that has been pretty damn wild. So
exactly.
I don't regret any of it. But the kind word at the beginning from those two people at my first event, and it was Lord Farrell back then. That's how old I am.
Nice.
That I wouldn't be here today. And I hear and all of us have heard these horror stories for decades, and I've witnessed them for decades, and it needs to stop, or there won't be one. There won't be an SCA. So, you know, it experienced a whole bunch of cultural shake in the past few years, and it may not recover from such things if it doesn't change some of its attitude. And that's, I think, the big one right there is how we treat everybody coming in. So good luck, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Well, first thing I'd like to say is thank all of you for coming out. And I'm sure Tristan thinks the exact same thing. This was a great show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's you know, Avark, this is really the first time we've been able to sit down and talk and just chill. I hope I get you on another show coming up some point. and we can talk more. Ingolf, thanks for coming out. And I know, you know, it's you're used to being on stuff. I hope that this was as good as those, and get your ass back to practice.
Roger that.
You all authentic.
Yes, definitely, Benzik. At Sven, we'll probably see you on that Tuesday night as well, and Tuesdays
sure.
and talking Fridays. It's like we hang out way too much nowadays.
Well, you gotta get the event going for when we come up to visit you. So I can buy
Yeah,
my plane
exactly.
tickets.
Let's nail some of that down. I actually talked to a couple people, and I already got some good interest. So
Excellent.
so Tristan, what do we got going, man? Is there anything
Next
you'd like to
week,
say?
I get
at
to
the end of
host
this,
2
baby?
weeks in a row. This is gonna be fabulous. We're gonna talk about the topic of coming back to fighting after a break. And I think this will be timely because a lot of us have had to take breaks for this last year and a half, 2 years. It's not just go throw your arm around and go. It can, and that can lead to injury. So we're gonna talk in depth about how to get going after a break, and whether or not that break was from an injury or from just you haven't been able to go to practice or whatever. It'll be a good one for, I think, a lot of people for us to discuss that. And it's going to be Rivkin, Ilyahu, Sir Tim, and Helga are going to join us for that one too. So that should be a good
That's
show.
a good crew.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Great.
I'd love to, of course, I thank you guys. I'm going to thank the audience and everybody watching and helping make the show as good as it is. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope everybody looking forward to that warmer weather, unless you're already there and we hate you. I hope to see everybody next week and soon at an event near us. So
Thank you, everyone.
thank you, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.